Jamie Widdoes is the Emmy-nominated director of the CBS comedy series Mom. I'm David Buchanan with Gold Derby. Jamie, congratulations on your first ever Emmy nomination. How did you first hear the news that you were nominated, and how does that recognition feel at this point in your career, and also as a kind of celebration of the final season of Mom?
Wow, that's a lot of really good questions wrapped into one. Well, first of all, it's obviously a tremendous honor and thrill to be nominated. It has been a long time. I've been doing this for 30 some years, and I've actually felt like I probably did some other shows that might have been deserving of a nomination too, but I'll take the one I got and be very, very happy with it. And then, of course, in answer to the final part of your question, it's bittersweet. It's bittersweet. We really thought we had another season or two in us. We were telling great stories, and the cast was loving it, and we were loving all working together, and we'd become such a nice family. And it's interesting, for all the different shows that I've done over the 30 or 35 years I've done it, this is one of the ones that I'm proudest of, because it tackled serious subjects while at the same time it could be screamingly funny.
Yeah, no question. And I do want to ask you about the series finale a bit later, but just for anybody who doesn't know, directors have to submit a particular episode on the Emmy ballot before they're nominated, and you chose the episode Scooby-Doo Checks and Salisbury Steak. So I was just wondering what went into your decision making on what episode from the final season to submit.
Well, David, as you just said, it's the same every year. My assistant comes to me and says, "What episode do you want to submit this year?" And then I have to sort of say to her, "Well, give me a list of the episodes I've done," because I can't sort them all out in my head, because it's usually 25 episodes or something like that I've done. And then I look through them, and I look through them for performances that I loved. I look for stuff that is, since I am in a comedy category, I try to find funny ones. And whether there's any sort of interesting technical stuff that we did that might be, worthy of attention, I look for that stuff too. So in this particular case, this is the third to last episode of the series that I put up. And I just particularly liked it because it was basically two two-handed stories put together. It was a wonderful story with Allison and Rainn Wilson as her therapist, and another wonderful story with Will Sasso and Jamie Presley, rekindling their romance in a rather unusual situation, which was a true story, by the way. One of the writers. The Jamie Presley, Will Sasso story actually happened to one of the writers.
Wow, no kidding.
Yeah,
it's a great episode, and as you're saying, so many different locations, even, and different storylines, and the ensemble does come together at the end of the episode, so you do get to see a variety of how the show works.
Right.
And for you mentioned you have to get a list of all the ones that you've done in a year to pick, and just to give viewers a sense of the scope of the work, you directed 123 episodes of Mom across all 8 of the seasons, which is an incredible body of work on just this series, let alone everything else you've done over your career. But I want to ask you, since you were there from season 1, and I know you didn't direct all the episodes in season 1, but can you talk a bit about the evolution of the show from season 1 to season 8, and the incredible ensemble that really developed from those early episodes to what we see in the final season?
Well, again, great question. One of the things that is really that I've had the pleasure of seeing a couple of times with Chuck Lorre, working with him and having done, I didn't know the number of Moms, but I know I did I think 160 some episodes of Two and a Half Men before that. So Chuck and I have worked together a long time. His ability to sort of see where the show wants to go and then the courage to take it there, whether it's not completely how it started or not, is really quite remarkable. And we're doing a little bit of that right now on Be Positive, where I'm directing right now. But you know, Mom started as two moms and three children, or two children. Was it two or three? I think it was
Two.
Two, right. But one of them had a boyfriend who was basically a child, and Anna had an ex-husband who was basically a child. And that's how the show started. And then as the women started to show up, it very clearly wanted to be with them. And the stories were gravitating towards these, you know, first it was three women with Mimi Kennedy and Allison and Anna, and then Jamie came in, and Beth came in, and Jamie came in, and then Kristen Johnson came in I think 3 seasons ago. It was quite remarkable. And then even, you know, when we lost Anna for the last season, watching the wonderful flexibility of the writing staff to tell stories about these wonderful characters. The show was kind of, there's a baseball phrase where you hit the ball where it's pitched. Don't try to swing where you think it's going to be. And this just kept going where it needed to be. And that's a credit to the writers.
Yeah, no question. And your work too. And also the kind of shepherding of Allison Janney over the series, especially as you're saying in the final season, dealing with some kind of changes to the cast and the structure of the show. And I don't know if viewers know this too, but you directed almost all of Allison's Emmy submissions over the years, including the episode that she won for in season 1 and the episode she submitted this year, the series finale. I wanted to ask you about working with Allison on really shaping the character arc over so many years, because, you know, Bonnie, who is such a kind of outlandish sitcom character in the first season, you know, has such a huge emotional growth. Not that she's not funny anymore, you know, by the end of the series, but she has such a genuine story arc over the 8 years. So how did you kind of help her navigate such a complex journey over time?
Well, again, give full credit to Chuck and Gemma Baker and Nick Bakay and Warren Bell and the whole writing staff. This developed, and it was very much a collaboration, certainly with the writers and Allison, and then of course me, wanting to sort of help her navigate the waters of different career switches. And when all of a sudden we introduced Bill Fichtner halfway through the series, and she falls in love and marries a guy in a wheelchair. And there's a really, really remarkable episode that I did not direct, that I really wanted to, but I couldn't, where Allison sees a video of Bill back when he was walking and thinks all of a sudden, oh my God, if he could still walk, he wouldn't be in love with me. And at the end he says, well, if you were still drinking, so we both, we happened to each other at the right time, given each other's disability, if you will. And Allison, of course, is such a skilled dramatic and comedic actress. I mean, really, one of the best, if not the best I've ever worked with. That a lot of this was really just my honor to be able to shake my head and say yes after she had done something and say, "Was that okay?" Yes, it was great.
Yeah, and speaking of that, her great kind of versatility across genres. Of course, we see that during the run of Mom, she wins the Academy Award for I, Tonya. Um, but also, in the series finale, which I really want to talk to you about, such a beautiful performance in that final episode, which is really, I've described it before as understated. It's a very kind of quiet, introspective, but beautiful episode. So I was wondering, what did you want to accomplish with that final episode? And I know you mentioned earlier you weren't necessarily anticipating that this was the final year, but how do you feel about that as your kind of final word on Mom?
Well, that final speech of hers is so elegant and beautiful, and able to sum up an entire series through one character. And I'll tell you quite honestly, from a directorial standpoint, all I did was not rehearse it.
Mm.
All I did was leave it alone and say to her, "Do you want to run it?" She'd say, "No, I'm good for today." And knowing that we're going to get to that day and she's going to come and she's going to feel that room and she's going to look out there at those other women and she's going to feed off of them. And, it's a remarkable performance. I hope she wins. By the way, let's be clear about something. I am not winning. I'm just happy to be in the group. I literally am the living embodiment of it's a pleasure to be nominated.
Well, it must be a real pleasure to be nominated. You just mentioned Be Positive earlier with your fellow James Burrows there.
Right. And then 3 Ted Lassos,
yeah,
which I love. And then my beautiful, beautiful Kaylee Cuoco, who I did 8 Simple Rules with a million years ago.
Right.
For that amazing pilot of hers, which I also love. So literally, I am just happy to be there.
And Hacks too, another great addition to the lineup this year.
That's right.
It is a stellar lineup of episodes, yours included. And it's so nice to see Mom recognized for the first time in that category.
And it's fun. Yeah. I mean, I love for Jimmy and I to at least, you can write what you want about where broadcast television is going, but we got 2 nominations out of the group.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I wanted to ask you something unique to the multicam format, and we're just talking about this, is always, performing and taping in front of a live studio audience, which of course this season was not available to you. So what was it like to try to navigate this show, which does have, an admittedly a pretty tricky tone, even though it is a sitcom, it's always kind of walking a very fine line with some heavy and very moving subjects. What was it like this year to not have that audience to work with and help you kind of shape the shows? And also, I don't know what rehearsal was like, but I imagine everybody in masks, maybe less rehearsal. So what was it like, this year trying to, land the plane, if you will, when you had so much change around you?
We were blessed, first of all, with an incredibly experienced writing staff. Almost everybody on our writing staff has actually run or created their own show before. I've done this for a long time. This last season was an exercise in trusting your instincts and knowing we've done this before. We know what's funny. We know if it's not working, we should change it. Or the writers know I can beat that joke. And because we didn't have an audience, we actually had the luxury of a very warm, non-rushed, very relaxed production schedule that allowed for trying new things, that allowed for a lot of experimentation that you might not be able to fit into a Friday night with 200 people.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Is there, looking back now that the show's wrapped and you're celebrating this achievement for the show, and for the work across all 8 years. It really feels like a culmination of
Right.
your work with the series. Is there a favorite episode? I know you just mentioned that great episode with Adam, the video of him from his past.
Yeah.
Are there other favorite episodes that you personally directed, or favorite storylines that you'll walk away from the series really remembering as some of your fondest moments and memories?
There was an episode 4 years ago. I just remember that for some incredibly funny reason, the ladies wound up in Canada stealing a barrel of maple syrup to bring back over the border. And it was somebody's harebrained money-making scheme or something like that. But they went on this odyssey, and there were various emotional threads that were working through the whole thing. And it winds up with them pulled over on the side of the road in their car, and they have a meeting. The six of them stuffed inside Jill's SUV, I think is the vehicle of choice in that one. And just the final shot of that car on the side of the road saying the Serenity Prayer with the six of them was just, I loved that one. And there were all sorts of them like that, David, for me, that just when you thought, this is going to be slapstick and goofy, all of a sudden, Emily Osment overdoses, or, Mimi Kennedy's husband dies. There were just all sorts of very real moments, and the cast and the writing was just so spot on in terms of delivering that both tones.
Yeah, that's one of the stellar parts of the show, and I'm sure is a great credit to your work over all 8 seasons. Jamie Widdoes, congratulations again on the Emmy nomination, and best of luck at the upcoming Emmy Awards. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, David.